great. I mean, I have to say that this has actually been a pretty great year for films. Not a lot of them have done well at the box office, but there's been a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's been a great year for escapism, and those have been big hits. Those have been big hits, including what you guys have on your list. So what I'd like to do then is go through our honorable mentions first.
Before we
get here's your honorable mention of the year.
My honorable mention of the year is writer-director Todd Field, who's an actor that worked for Stanley Kubrick in Eyes Wide Shut. The last time we heard from him, he made Little Children, the movie Little Children that came out in 2006. Hadn't made a film since, and this year he wrote and directed the stunning Tar that stars Cate Blanchett in one of the great acting turns of the year. And I really loved I loved Little Children. It was based on a novel by the guy who wrote The Leftovers, Tom Perrotta, I think his last name is. And I loved seeing him come back. I mean, I love the fact, they always say you're only as good as your last project. And in Hollywood, if you don't make a movie in, 17 years or whatever, you're basically dead to the industry. So it was great to see him come back and make such a stunning piece of work with an incredible, indelible performance from Cate Blanchett. So good on you, Todd Field. Welcome back.
Wasn't he in Eyes Wide Shut? Wasn't he?
Yeah, he was Nick Nightingale.
The piano player, right?
He was the piano player who told Tom Cruise about Fidelio. Yeah.
Yeah.
The party.
Yeah, and I vaguely remember that film he directed, but it was good back in the day.
Yeah.
So that is your honorable mention, director Todd Field of Tar. Okay.
And to give you a hint, it ties into my list.
Oh. Ooh. Well, Tar and Cate Blanchett have been hearing wonderful things about that film. So definitely.
I think you'd really like it.
Yeah. I think. Well, Romy wants to see it as well. We're big Blanchett fans, so for sure.
She's amazing.
For sure. Okay, Rosa's honorable mentions.
I asked how many. You're like, as many as you want, and I think I went a little bit overboard here. So I just have 3 movies that I just briefly wanted to highlight. One of them being Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, it's technically my number 6. So just to get an idea of what my list is looking like from favorites of the year. Marcel, that movie is just so adorable. It's tender, it's sweet. Sometimes it's also thought-provoking, and it's just a beautiful look at family, friendship, and life. So in that sense, it's really a movie I highly recommend seeking out. Women Talking by Sarah Paulie. That movie is certainly a slow-paced, dialogue-heavy. Majority of the film, we spend time with these group of women, which, by the way, it's my favorite ensemble of the year. In this movie, they're so powerful. The dynamic between them, it's so, oh my God, so inspiring, but also you just cannot take your eyes off them. And this movie obviously touches difficult topics. They have conversations about, sadly, I don't know if I can say this without you being banned, but hopefully you know what I mean by that. And what these women experience in this religious, secluded community. And we see different perspectives, different lenses. A movie that I thoroughly do believe it's better because it is written and directed by a woman. So all these female issues that they're experiencing is certainly not an easy watch, but an important one in my humble opinion. And then lastly, Bardo. I have to give Bardo a shout out, because what Alejandro González Iñárritu does in this movie, sadly I'm not seeing a lot of love for it, because it is getting a lot of mixed reviews, because it's Iñárritu, that I guess that's his gig. not everybody loves his filmmaking and his style and so on, but I personally loved Bardo. I feel it's his most experimental one. but also it feels his most personal one as well. And what he does here is just extraordinary. So, and I think it's currently streaming on Netflix. It just started streaming, I believe, yesterday. So if you want to seek that one out also. But yeah, those are the 3 films I just wanted to quickly highlight.
If I could give a shout out, I agree with you about Bardo. I interviewed on this week's Designing Hollywood podcast Anna Terrazas, who is the costume designer for Bardo.
Yes.
And we had an incredible chat. She's a delightful, very talented woman. And you can hear that on the John Campea channel under Designing Hollywood. And she was wonderful. I loved speaking with her.
Well, and I will say this: I think Inarritu is one of the great filmmakers of our time. He's a true artist, but as a result, he's an artist that not everyone gets the art. And I think another example of that is Damien Chazelle, who I'm a huge fan of. Right, First Man is amongst my top movies of all time. I love that film, and I love La La Land. I didn't like Babylon as much, and I appreciate what he tried to do. Right, and so there are great artists out there who are just they're going to keep pushing the edge for us, like Inarritu, and so I'm glad they're there.
My quick question is, why should I see women talking? Because it completely doesn't appeal to me at all, Rosa.
Yeah, I understand why it wouldn't appeal to a lot of let's say to a lot of men out there. But I do think it's a conversation worth witnessing. Not only because I think it's the best ensemble out there, but because of the different perspectives that come in regard to this subject matter. You have people who somehow, some way, I don't want to say sympathize, but they would rather forgive the person doing these atrocities because of the religion, because of how they were brought up, because of the culture. While there's other women who would rather just leave. They just want to leave. They want nothing to do with this. Others want to stay and fight a system that's sadly been built not necessarily to benefit them. So I understand why it's not appealing. I get it, but I think it's certainly a conversation worth witnessing. I know I probably did not convince you, but
it's about I'm going to be frank. The reality is a lot of men have felt, certainly in the last decade, that they were preached at. And rather than being engaged in a conversation that could open hearts, right? And so I hope the movie is, as you described, it would be more useful for it to be something that engages conversation, because nobody wants to be made to feel this is all your fault, man. And and it sounds like this is more specific to the experience of women in a particular community, right?
Correct.
And then maybe you can analogize that to other issues. So I thank you for that, but understand that a lot of men are at a place where there is a resistance from the way these conversations have been held in recent years.
No, and I completely get it. And it just quickly, there is this the character of Ben Whishaw, who actually is there kind of like as a symbol of exactly that. Not all men are the same. So I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Okay, let's get to Cameron's honorable mentions. Screen 5 with the lovely Melissa Barrera.
Well, this was going to be my honorable mention. I was debating whether I was going to put it in my top 5. It's a very controversial choice. A lot of people didn't like Scream. A lot of people didn't like Scream because they'd heard that it was a woke leftist movie, and it's not that. So I mean,
terrible woke leftist horror film.
Yeah, but that's to Bill, we're just talking about Rosa. I think people have been conditioned. The fans have been conditioned. The moment they hear that anything is quote unquote woke, they'll just resist and fight it rather than enjoying a perfectly entertaining. I love horror movies. I love slasher movies. It's because of Scream that I am a screenwriter today. The very first movie that I wrote as a writing sample that got me my first agent, was inspired by Scream. It was a teen slasher. And I saw Scream. I loved the original Scream so much. I wrote sort of it had a mystical element to it. It was more like Insidious. It was about astral projection, right? But it had to stalk this killer in it. And that got me my first agent. So Scream is very important to me because I'm sitting here today because of Scream, the franchise. And, and I thought what they did in this movie was, unlike a lot of the subsequent sequels, they came back to what the original was trying to do, which was that it was intelligent commentary on society and with new thoughts, right? Because the problem with the sequels is that they kind of made all the comments of the era in the first movie, and so the sequels didn't. add to it. Whereas now we're at a different place where we've had this thing where fans have become, angry at the system and angry at the sequels and all, angry at the Last Jedi and all these other things, right? And the movie references that. We're finally at a place where there's a new conversation about where the fans are, right? And how Hollywood, ruins sequels. And Melissa Barrera just shone in this movie. She just absolutely shone. I'm glad she's taking on the mantle. I'm sad that Nev Campbell isn't coming back, and I think it was a mistake on the part of the producers to not give Campbell a cameo or something in Scream 6. But that's, as Robert knows, that's Hollywood, right? But Melissa will be able to carry this on, and the young woman that played her sister, Jenna Ortega, was wonderful, and I'm delighted that two Latinas are leading this franchise forward, and if part of that is also economics. The Latino community has been big supporters of horror movies, and the industry has woken up to that, right? And so it's great, and so I had the time of my life in there. It made me feel a lot like, I think the first movie will always be supreme, but it made me feel a lot like what I felt in that first movie.
Great choice. And I'm gonna piggyback off that. As far as my honorable mentions, to me, this is the year of Ortega. It's Jenna's year. She's had an amazing year on film, and of course now on television with television with Wednesday. But on film, to me, everything she does, she stands out. She stood out in Scream. I absolutely was riveted with this little sister, and then with X. Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god. What a great character too, like the timid sound, girlfriend who's holding up the sound. She's fantastic. Me and Romy went to see Scream. We had a good time. If you're going to get into a point where you're overthinking Scream and not just being entertained, it's like, I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
We had a good time. And that's all I can expect from Scream.
What did you guys think of the teaser for Scream 6?
I haven't seen it yet.
I have, so I'll be careful what I'll say. I don't want to spoil it.
No, go ahead.
Okay. It's interesting. I don't think there's enough in the teaser to tell me why I should watch this movie. I'm going to watch it because I like this franchise. I like Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega, right? But it also threw me a little back to like Jason Takes Manhattan, if you remember that movie.
But I'm like, I wonder if there's like a whole cult, of ghost face killers that go out on one night and
would make sense.
Look, whatever it is, it's intriguing to me. I was intrigued by it.
Really fast, then, just to finish off my list. I just seen the movie. It is definitely probably top 10, but Avatar, I have to mention. It is a return to escapism. It's praising the family. It's praising fatherhood. A father protects. That gives him meaning. They kept saying that line, and I fell for it, man. I had an incredible time. I saw it in 3D, sitting next to Chris Gore. we were having a blast, man. I mean, that's what movies are all about. So those are my honorable mentions. You guys have any comments before we start with number 5?
No, I think it's a good list. Our honorable mentions are a good list.
The honorable mentions are fantastic, right? Yeah.